Police in Malawi have used tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters that marched on the streets of the capital Lilongwe against corruption in government. The demonstrators were led by a group called Citizens Against Impunity and Corruption. The march was initially planned for March the 2nd, but the permission was later withdrawn by the district council.
The protesters pelted the district council's offices with stones, prompting the police response. The organizer of the march, Chisambele, said their concerns are bigger and concern all Malawians, even the police officers who are firing the tear gas at them. The organizers promised more demonstrations against individuals and institutions involved in corruption across the country. The protests in Malawi are the largest since President Lazarus Chakwera won elections in June 2020 on the promise of eradicating corruption. In January, he sacked 7 of his ministers over corruption claims, but has struggled to win public confidence that he's making headway in cleaning up government.
Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Executive Director for the Centre for Social Accountability and Transparency, Willy Kambwandira. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us, what is fueling these protests? President Chakwera said that one of his main missions becoming president was to deal with corruption, and he made all sorts of changes to government structures. Has this not been working?
Yeah, no, you are right. I think President Lazarus Chakwera was voted into power on the promise that he will fight corruption head on. But I think we haven't seen much action in terms of action on the ground. What we have seen, and perhaps what is the fueling corruption in Malawi, is government double standards on the step. So citizens now are becoming so angry. We saw the director of public prosecution refusing to grant consent to the Anti-Corruption Bureau to prosecute a case involving a business person who is suspected to have defrauded the government billions of kwacha. And I think even the progress of corruption cases in the courts, the progress is not satisfactory. There are lots of corruption. We've seen a lot of people being elected, but very little has been done to make sure that these cases are prosecuted with speed. So these are some of the things that have made me force now citizens to go into the street and maybe to demand accountability on the fight of against corruption.
Listening to you, it sounds as if part of this might be resources in terms of the ability to be able to go after corruption, but also that there is some deliberate actions being taken to prevent prosecutions and to protect perhaps those that are wealthy and influential.
Yes, you are right. I think this is shared by among many Malawians here in Malawi to say perhaps there seems to be a tactic by those in power to protect some individuals involved in corrupt dealings. So this is not going on well with Malawians, and I am of the view that maybe we should expect more demonstrations if the government doesn't come out and decisively deal with the situation at hand. But let me also say that much as maybe President Lazarus Chakwera promised to make the Anti-Corruption Bureau independent, we haven't also seen much in terms of changing the law to make sure that the Anti-Corruption Bureau is independent. The President remains the appointing authority. The President remains with powers even to fire the Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. So we haven't seen much change. This is why maybe people are now going to the streets.
Why do you think the president perhaps is not moving as quickly as the public might want? Is it because that there are a lot of political favors that he needs to pay for winning the election?
Yes, I think for me, this goes back to political party financing. What we are seeing is that some of these parties, some of these individuals suspected to have been involved in corruption. They are the same people who have been financing the political parties. So perhaps maybe this is why the president and the leadership is reluctant to act on them. And if you read through again, we have also seen that senior government officials, including 3 cabinet ministers, they have been arrested in connection to corruption. So this is why maybe the president is failing to decisively deal with corruption. He promised Malawians that he's going to clear the rubble and the labeled corruption, but he has failed to do the same.
So are we likely to see more of these kinds of demonstrations? I mean, these are the protests and the demonstrations that managed to unseat the previous president to the benefit of the current one.
I don't know, but I would be happy if maybe citizens continue to pressurize the current government to make sure that they act on the cases to do with corruption. So I will not be surprised, but maybe to answer your question, we should expect more of these demonstrations.
Just how deep is corruption in the country? I think you might have answered it in part earlier on, but it seems as if that it's entrenched in various levels and layers of Malawian society to such a degree that it would take quite a job to unravel it.
Yeah, I agree. But I think to answer your question, corruption is getting out of control in Malawi. It has eaten every fabric of our society. I think, as I said, we have seen senior government officials, including senior cabinet ministers, involved in corruption. And even a recent report by the Transparency International have also shown that corruption in Malawi is also growing. Corruption in Malawi, I think, is becoming part of our culture. So for you to get a service in a public service, one has to corruptly accept a service. So it is indeed a serious thing in Malawi, and Malawians have to stand up. We have also seen how those in power have also used institutions to divide and rule. The coordination, as we are talking now, between the office of the Attorney General, for instance, and that of maybe the Director of Anti-Corruption Bureau is not good. We have also seen how the Director of Public Prosecution has been entangled in preventing to grant a consent to the Anti-Corruption Bureau to prosecute a high-profile corruption case. So this tells us how deep corruption is in Malawi, and the onus is on Malawians to fight. I think what we are seeing now is corruption is fighting back. So Malawians again have to stand firm. Malawians again have to commit themselves to fight back.
Now, the president dissolved cabinet this year to try and fight corruption. Clearly that hasn't helped, but he himself has been accused of nepotism. giving positions to people close to him, including his daughter. This doesn't help the narrative of trying to deal with corruption.
Yes, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. And I think the president is also on record to have even admitted on the same. I think the president hasn't been decisive enough to deal with this. And I think what we have seen mostly is the president has been acting under pressure to act on certain decisions, including firing of his own cabinet ministers. It had to take Malawians to protest for the president to fire his own allies. So indeed, having close family members close to him, friends close to him, I think that doesn't help in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. And we have seen how leaders elsewhere have fallen simply because they were surrounded by families and friends.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and giving us an update on the situation in Malawi, where thousands of people have taken to the streets demanding that corruption be dealt with. And we were talking there to a Malawian who was sharing his thoughts, Executive Director for the Center of Social Accountability and Transparency, Willy Kambwandira.